Welcome to Paste Magazine. My name is Brad. I'm your host, and we're here today to take a look at A Life in Focus, The Art of Graham Nash. We're here live at Berlin Under A in the East Village in New York with Graham Nash. Graham Nash, thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. This is a special day for us. It's not every day that Graham Nash is here at Berlin.
It's a special day for me too. I've never been to the Berlin bar. It looks pretty cool here.
Yeah, it is. There's shows every night. Foley has been kind enough to open this guy up for us. And man, thank you. Dude, this book is absolutely gorgeous, and I would love to dive into a little bit about your origin and your interest in photography and what got you interested in it in the first place, going all the way back to makeshift darkroom and
you got it.
Your room to the vintage photo collection in San Francisco and all those experiences that added to your love of photography.
I was about 10 years old. My father was an engineer, and he would work, from 8 in the morning until, 5:30 at night. But at the weekends, one of his main pleasures was taking, we had 2 kids, me and my sister. He would take us to the zoo and take pictures. And then we had we were a very poor family, so we lived in what was called a 2 up, 2 down house. 2 small rooms upstairs, 2 small rooms downstairs. That was it. My dad would take the bedroom that me and my sister shared, and he would take my blanket and put it up against the window to block out the light, and then he'd show me the magic of photography. I mean, he put a blank piece of paper into a almost colorless liquid, and then said, "Wait." And I'm going, "Okay." I'm still waiting. What? He goes, "Wait." And then all of a sudden, this image came out of nowhere. That was the magic. Is seeing that first image appear out of nowhere. It was total magic to me, and I've never forgotten that moment till this day.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad that it has manifested itself in this book. There's the preface, the foreword rather, by Joel Bernstein, and then the preface by Cameron Crowe.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the relationship that you've had with both of those guys, particularly with Joel? I know that is a long-standing both musical and visual art relationship between the two of you.
I can honestly say that Joel Bernstein is my best friend. I've known him since he was, I think, 16. I met him first on February the 1st, 1969. Joni Mitchell was playing at Carnegie Hall here in New York City, and Joan had asked Joel to be her photographer, and so he was there. And that's the night I met him, and he's been my best friend ever since. He's a remarkable photographer and a remarkable person.
Yeah, we've got to check out some of the album artwork that he did for some of the Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young records.
And after
for some
the Gold
of Neil's,
Rush.
Yeah.
And Joni's covers,
Yeah. So in this book, there's a lot of candid photography, and I've heard the quote from you that you're in a constant quest for invisibility to be able to take candid photographs. I'm wondering, what is it specifically about an unobserved face to you that is more interesting than a subject that knows that they're being photographed?
I've been photographed a lot in my life, obviously, and I know that face that you put on when you think someone's taking a picture of you, because you always want to be cool, you want to look like the best, James Dean,
I'm doing it literally right now.
There you go, right? And I have that face too, and I don't like that face. Even though I do it, I don't like it, and I don't like it in other people, and the only way that I can avoid it is by being as invisible as possible. There are many shots in the book where, Crosby or Joan didn't even know I was there. That's when I can take the best images, because I know that I can photograph their insides as well as what they're presenting on the outside. Right. I like to be invisible.
That makes sense. What are some of the strategies that you've been taking photographs for 50 plus years? You've had
longer than that.
Yeah.
Since I was 10, and I'm nearly 80, so it's 70 years.
Quite a bit of experience to develop different strategies to become invisible. Can you talk about some of the, whether it's long lenses or camouflage or whatever, can you talk about some of the strategies you've developed in order to be as invisible as possible and catch those candid moments?
I think if you're always carrying your camera, which I was, people tend to forget. that you got a camera on. And once they get into that kind of a mood, I can shoot from my hip, I can shoot, you know, from a telephoto lens like you're saying, but they don't know that I'm taking that picture, and that's when I get my best images. No doubt about it.
That's great. Have you heard there's a saying, what is the best camera in the world?
I don't care.
Yeah, well, I don't care is a wonderful answer. The answer that I've heard is the one you have. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's your iPhone, if it's the most fancy Hasselblad in the world, it's the one that you have and you're using.
Right. I don't care what I'm shooting with. I only care about what I'm shooting. I've had Mickey Mouse cameras, I've had Hasselblads, I've had the greatest Leicas, black and white. I don't really care what camera I'm using. I just hope that I have a camera when Elvis comes back on the back of an elephant right here in the East Village. I'll be waiting with my iPhone, you know. A lot of people say, well, iPhones, you know, that's not a camera. Of course it's a camera. There's millions and millions and millions of pictures taken every single day with iPhones. So I'm not against iPhones, I'm not against cameras, I'm not against the best, I'm not against the worst. I don't care what I've got, as long as I can take the image that I see.
That makes a lot of sense. And so as it sounds like it's maybe or based on what you just said, it is unimportant what the piece of tech is that you have in your hand as long as you have it. I know from having read the book and from having done research about you and your process that you do enjoy getting under the hood to a certain extent in the post-production process, whether that's tweaking darkroom techniques or whether that's taking apart your printer and substituting different parts, or using infrared photo for that Joni, that red Joni photo.
Right.
So can you talk about the extent to which you do get geeky with technology after the fact, after the image is captured and the way it gets developed?
I bought my first digital camera in Tokyo in Japan, maybe 30 years ago. It was an incredibly crude device. The image came out like you know, at a gas station, right? So the quality was awful, but there was something about it. And I realized that this digital world was coming at us like a freight train, and that we either get on the train or the train will leave us behind. I spent many years waiting for digital cameras to reach the quality of a real camera. And it used to be that they were, you know, 300 DPI, and all of a sudden, you know, about 10, 15 years ago, digital cameras passed normal cameras in their reproduction of the image. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, I can sit in my apartment here in New York and you know, spot an image, you know, take off the little tiny bits of dust that were on there, you know, la la la. I don't care what it is. I mean, when I first started recording many years ago, it was 2 tracks. That was it, 2 tracks. There's 1,000 on my iPhone. You know, technology comes a long way. I don't care. Just keep bringing me the best stuff and I'll use it the way I want to use it. The very first printer that I bought, that I started Nash Editions with my friend Mac Holbert, our original printer's in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Because it appears that Nash Editions, which is the name of my printing company, in 1989 were the first people to be representing photography in the digital world. And we have been making prints for the last 25, 30 years, and I go around a lot of galleries every time I'm on the road, and I check out prints, and I check out the digital prints, I check out the corners to see if any one color is out of register. I do all that. Nash Editions is still making the best prints, and we've been doing it for over 30 years.
Beautiful. Well, it shows. I mean, it shows, and I cannot wait to own a copy of this book. I'm about to own a copy. Maybe that's mine. Maybe I walk home with this book.
No, this is the only one right now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think mine arrives on Friday, maybe.
Great.
Yeah.
And I brought it because I knew that you didn't have, you know, this pandemic and you know, has really screwed up the world. Yeah. Everything is delayed, you know, with all the incredible stuff that's waiting to be, come into port, to be unloaded, to get to the stores, to get to the people. It's all been totally crazy right now. So it should have come out maybe a month earlier than it did, for the Christmas market. But I'll take anything I can,
Yeah, beautiful. By the time this video comes out that we're doing right now, it will be on shelves. It will be available at all of the places that you would expect books to be available. So as you have moved from film into digital, I would imagine you still use every tool that's available to you. You still shoot film, you shoot whatever you happen to have access to at the time.
Right.
Do you find that your process changes at all when you have access to fire off 1,200 pictures at a time digitally, or are you still editing yourself similarly on digital to how you used to with film?
I don't do that. I don't use the camera as my memory, and I don't take 12,000 shots hoping that the middle one is the great shot. I'll try and get a shot. I once tried an experiment where I was using Tri-X, and it was only, the 24 exposures, but I wanted to get 24 great shots on one piece of film. I never made it, of course, but at least I'm trying,
Do those contact sheets end up on display somewhere?
I love contact sheets. Yeah. And I love to see what the photographer thought the best frame was. I love contact sheets, absolutely. I still have hundreds of contact sheets in my apartment.
Yeah, and the grease pencil.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Well, let's see. So one of the bits in this book that was interesting to me was to hear you talk about hearing cellos when you are admiring Ansel Adams in particular. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about literal synesthesia? I mean, do you literally hear those instruments in your mind, or are you talking about being inspired enough to be able to imagine strings in your mind, or are you literally hearing the picture?
I'm not hearing melodies. I'm hearing banks of instruments work. The example I choose is Moonrise over Hernandez by Ansel Adams that he shot in, I think, 1944. And when I look at the image, I can see in the foreground all the dark trees and the dark bushes and the dark lawns and stuff. And I can imagine cellos playing. I can imagine low violas playing the low stuff. And when I look at the image and I look up at the full moon and then I look up into the wispy gray clouds, I can imagine violins playing. I'm not hearing a melody. That's down to people like Kandinsky, who had synesthesia and could actually hear what note yellow was. Wow, really? I don't have that, but I can imagine very clearly and very easily music in photographs.
And you can give a note while you're in the studio practicing the music part of your art to give a note to somebody that says this needs to be more purple, and luckily you've worked to surround yourself with people who understand what that means.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think any of my friends read music. I mean, James doesn't, Joni doesn't, Neil doesn't, Stephen doesn't, David doesn't, I don't. We don't read music, but we can talk to people, as you said. Can we make this chord slightly more purple? So then the arranger would imagine, oh, he means a slight minor chord to really push that emotion. Yeah, music and photography, and I get to do both in my life, and I'm very grateful.
Well, it's fascinating to understand more about how you view yourself in relation to your art, how you view yourself in relation to Ansel Adams and to other artists. There's a picture in the book of Dennis Hopper at the Kentucky Derby, yes. And there's one explanation of the relationship between an observer and art, or an observer and an artist, that he said years and years ago, which has stuck with me, which is if you're walking through a gallery, whether you know anything about art or not, there's a piece of art that doesn't arouse any kind of emotion and feels like, it gives you the same feeling as just passing a stranger on the subway. Doesn't matter. Keep walking, it doesn't matter. If there is then a piece that gives you a feeling like you're with a friend at dinner, hanging out with your friend at a bar, and arouses that kind of emotion, then spend more time with it. Buy it if you can, take it home if you can. Yeah. Which, I mean, that made a lot of sense to me. And so the way he views it, that's very eloquent and wonderful. I'm wondering, how do you visualize your relationship between the art that you appreciate, and beyond that, the artist that created that work of art?
When I was a child, my friend Alan Clark, and we formed the Hollies in December of 1962. But before that, I made a plywood guitar and painted it red. It had no strings, but I had a rope that it was around my neck. You would stand in front of a mirror and you'd act just like Elvis did, and just like all those people and the Everly Brothers, and you'd soak it all up, and then you'd forget about it. That's how you learned. You forget about it, and it starts to come out the way you want it to come out. But you learn and then forget. You know, you can learn all that stuff, but forget it, let it come out your way. And that's what happened to me. And it was very obvious from a very early age that not only did I think that I saw slightly differently than most people, I see beauty all over the place. In fact, I'm working on a new book right now called Beauty in All Things, because the most beautiful things happen. I mean, look at the composition of this microphone on this chair, for instance. You know, I know that I could take a picture of that and show it to you, and you go, wow, how cool is that? I didn't realize that it looked so great. I see differently, and I hear differently. You know, when I was 6 years old, I was looking out of my parents' window on the second floor, and I could hear the horses coming down the street, clippity clop, clippity clop. I could hear the wheels of the tradesmen that would come and get rag and bone from you and stuff like. I heard all this music. I heard people talking. It was all music to me. I was in elevators, you know, in my early days, and I could hear clang, 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 clang. I could hear the music of the elevator. I just do.
Yeah, well, it's been a gift for me, for my wife, for everybody in this room, and I mean the world, frankly. You're one of the most recognizable musicians that there is. So the way that you have taken in information, put it through your filter, and then back out into the world has been a complete pleasure for millions of people for years. So thank you.
You're very welcome
for being here. If you do end up taking a picture of that guy, just 15% of the proceeds to me would be fine, since I did art direct to that particular microphone and plugged
no problem. No, it's a beautiful composition.
Yes,
thank you.
Is. Thank you. We tried. We did our best. And we, I've got a couple more questions about this book.
Okay.
They're in relation to Dennis Hopper. No, moving past Dennis Hopper, and there's so many interesting combinations of people who I, in my mind, would not have ever put together. Yet there's Joni Mitchell and Johnny Cash, who are not artists who I associate at all, but we've got a photograph of them. There's Alice Cooper with Philip Seymour Hoffman together, which is, I mean, in no other circumstance does Graham Nash, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Alice Cooper get together.
I know.
You've been, lucky is not the right word. You have found yourself in so many of these interesting cultural intersections throughout the world, throughout your life. What do you think it is about the way you carry yourself, the way you live, that finds you in so many of these interesting intersections?
Very often I can wake up in the morning and I can say to myself, okay, world, I'm coming out there, I've got my camera, show me the best. What have you got for me today? And I can put myself in that mood. And inevitably, something fabulous happens. Like, for instance, I didn't realize that was Seymour Hoffman in the very left-hand part of that picture of Alice Cooper until I saw it later, and I went, "Wow, look at that! That's Philip Seymour Hoffman there." And I didn't realize it at the time, you know. And so it's one of those things. I can will myself into seeing interesting stuff, interesting to me. Hopefully interesting to you also. But I can put myself in the mood to take pictures. I demand it of my life.
Well, it certainly is interesting to me. And one more question that I have before we get out of here is that, so we're in the East Village at Berlin under A right now in New York City. A significant portion of the photos in that book are taken in New York City. What is it about this place, do you find yourself influenced and inspired differently in New York? You've been here for the last 6 years versus the way you were inspired in the Laurel Canyon
Absolutely.
in the 60s and 70s versus all the other photos in it. Do you feel a difference in the vibe and a difference in your output here in this city?
I've been to New York many times in my life, obviously. Normally I would come for 3 or 4 days to do a show or some interviews, and then I couldn't wait to get out of town. When you live here, you begin to realize just how incredibly great this city is. I just finished a book called The Island at the Center of the World, and it's about Manhattan from 1600 onward, and it's never changed. It's a collection of people that want to come and make money and make a life, make something better than they've experienced. And it hasn't changed in 400 years. This is the place to come, seek your future, make money, get on with your life. This is an unbelievable city. I mean, just from the art galleries and the swap meets and, all the stuff. I mean, it's crazy right outside this door. I mean, it's actually crazy inside this door, but it's very crazy outside that door. And I'm ready for it. What is it? Come on, world. Show me what you got. I'm ready. I got my camera.
Nice. That's a wonderful way to look at it. There's something about the confluence of the rivers of the Hudson and the East River that was good for commerce,
Yes.
is good for commerce,
Yes.
is good for just keeping energy moving and just being in close proximity to 8 million other people.
I know.
Keeps us all on our toes, definitely.
It's a fabulous city. I'm very pleased to be here. I love my wife Amy, who's she's from Tallahassee originally, but has lived in New York for 15 years. I'm having a good time, and I think because I'm still having a good time that I'll probably be able to live a little longer. I'm not giving up. I'm not retiring. I have no interest in retiring. First of all, I can't spell it. And secondly, no. I'm going to be making art when they're closing the coffin lid.
Well, thank you very much for sharing it with us today.
You're
Graham
welcome,
Nash,
Brad.
this has been a total pleasure, and let's do this again. When the next book comes out, we'll come down to Berlin under A and sit and have another chat, and we'll keep it going. And the book, A Life in Focus, The Art of Graham Nash, by the time this reaches the internet, will be available everywhere. So thank you again, Graham, for doing this.
You're welcome. Thanks very much.
See you next time.